Well, I asked, where's the beef? Let's call this for what this is. Oh my God! They are so hopelessly woke. How dare you? That is the intellectual capital of the left today. Give me a break. You are now watching the Daily Roundup.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our daily live stream. Apparently, Sheila's microphone is not coming through. I was wondering if it was just an issue on my end, but it sounds like it's an issue perhaps on Sheila's end. So if you're just joining us at home, welcome after a absolutely crazy election night live stream where more than half of the Rebel team was up until the wee hours of the morning to bring you that coverage. Just give us a few moments as we try to sort out the audio issue that we have with Sheila. But I guess we should just go through some housekeeping in that we're streaming on a few different platforms. So if you're joining us from home, you can see us currently on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, and Odyssey. We're still trying out this locals account. So that is kind of a fun endeavor where we're trying to consolidate some of our platforms and get onto locals, which will have some benefits there for Rebel News Plus members. So if you haven't checked out that platform yet, I urge you to do so. And I don't believe that we're getting into any COVID nitty-gritty over this live stream, but if at any point we do, or we start to question the science, which I guess is anti-science at this point in the last 3 years, then we will cut off our YouTube stream, and I would urge you to join us on one of those other platforms, probably Rumble or Twitter, where the censorious hammer is not so strong. I think that we may have Sheila back. I don't know if her microphone's working yet, if we can do a little test.
I think my microphone's working, but a Skype feed was frozen then.
Oh no. All right. So Sheila is dealing with some internet issues. Unfortunately, I guess fortunately, Sheila was able to get through the live stream last night, but is a bit hindered this morning with our live stream now, which is like a double whammy for you, Sheila, back to back.
Oh, it's a lot. I think it was like 6 hours of live TV last night. Disappointment, then excitement, then disappointment again when Rachel Notley didn't resign, but made me listen to her whole speech, hoping that she would resign. And then she gets to the very end and she's like, and I'm staying on as leader, even though I lost 2 back-to-back elections. And then, yes, I was a little, as they say, lethargic, sluggish in the morning meeting, but I've made a miraculous recovery. I've consumed a lot of coffee, and I'm also filling in for Ezra today, so God help us all. But it is a very exciting day here in Alberta. I'm pleased to announce that the pollsters and the media were dead wrong. They were really lobbying hard for Rachel Notley to pull off some sort of miracle on the prairies. It never happened. I don't know why anybody listens to them anymore. I really don't, because they are constantly wrong. Although we did have some high-profile losses, but I think they're going to go to recount. So, for example, Tyler Shandro, which is Alberta's Justice Minister, Solicitor General in Calgary, Acadia. He was the chief locker-downer under Jason Kenney, just going after the pastors. And he has lost by, I think it's under 10 votes, maybe. I haven't checked this morning again.
Just over 10, 12, 13 votes. But we have some visual to show you in that regard. There was a post on Twitter by Yukon Strong who broke down some of the vote splitting and the consequences where these regions were flipped NDP because of, as you just mentioned, Sheila, something like 10, 12, 13 votes. So maybe we can just show that on screen here.
Yeah, so Yeah, Calgary Acadia, it's very close. It's it's under 10 votes there. And that, I bet Tyler Shandro is really regretting coming down hard on those pastors, because that's like 10 conservatives who just said, I cannot give him my vote. I just can't. I'm a conservative, but I just can't. And then you see it's the NDP really didn't actually gain all that many votes. Like votes did not move from the UCP over to the NDP. That's not what happened. What we saw is a complete and total collapse of the Alberta Party vote. And where it didn't completely collapse, it may have been enough to help the NDP out. So the Alberta Party is just exactly that. Nobody knows what it stands for. Nobody knows what it is. I see there's a bunch of like old progressive conservatives who are involved in it sometimes. Sue Timonson in Sherwood Park, I'm looking at you. Their time probably would have been better spent campaigning for more progressive-minded UCP candidates than electing NDPers, but here we are. But yeah, it doesn't seem as though the NDP gained many votes from the UCP. In fact, I've seen some analysis say Jason Kenney probably could have won this election too, with all of his baggage. It was a complete and total collapse of the progressive vote, which coalesced around the NDP, which we see at the federal level, it coalesces around the Liberals. So that's what happened here in Alberta. I guess we're a two-party state here.
Yeah, to me, it was just a little bit disconcerting to see how much that Alberta Party really snatched from the UCP. I mean, you hear about vote splitting all the time and how it's a concern and be mindful of it. But when you see it laid out in a tweet like this, just how it makes a very compelling argument for strategic voting. And that's something that personally I kind of toy with, whether or not you should vote by merit or vote strategically. And this just goes to show how easy it is to flip some of those areas. So I don't even want to think about what kind of live stream this would be either yesterday or today if the NDP had have won. And as Yukon Strong points out, if they had have just flipped 7 of these ridings, and you can see how close those vote counts were, and again, maybe some of them will be recounted, but if they had have just flipped 7, a mere 7 of these ridings, then Notley would have been premier, and that's really concerning.
Well, as Ezra said, the Conservative vote was very efficient. It was in the places that it needed to be. I want to, one of the things we talked about last night, and I might be springing this on Olivia and Efron, but it is on my Twitter feed, and I want to read this. I'll censor myself with the harsh language that's in it. But it really breaks down sort of what I love about Alberta, too. So it is by bushels per acre, if you wouldn't mind. It's the third tweet down on my Twitter account. And bushels per acre is a farmer, a social media activist. And it really details the story of what happened last night. Everyone is so impressed that the NDP gained seat. Everyone that is so impressed that the NDP gained seats is a moron. Well, I wouldn't say, well, okay. Danielle Smith is the story here, but of course it's ignored. You have someone who didn't even hold a seat, but had a controversial talk radio show. She was essentially kicked off radio for her viewpoints because she was very anti-lockdown. They told her to stop talking about the vaccines. Then she ran for premier after Kenney called for a leadership review. Half of Conservatives were skeptical of her for crossing the floor, because she did cross the floor in, I think it was 2014, and that paved the way for the NDP to get elected in 2015. She was the Wild Rose official opposition leader. She joined the Progressive Conservatives in a floor crossing instead of putting it to the grassroots on a decision. And the party rejected her for it. They made sure that she lost her nomination. Both Progressive Conservatives and Wild Rosers were completely against her. And I'll tell you something. She has said that she went away for 3 years because she knew we didn't want to look at her. And she was right. I was very angry with her for what she did. She betrayed so many, and she never tried to explain it away. She just said she was wrong, and she did I guess like a decade-long apology to her about it. But let's keep going. She had to run against Kenney's executive team, and she won. Then she had only 7 months. This is the thing. Kenney kneecapped her. He didn't give her enough time for people to know who she was. Then she had 7 months to do anything as a premier, while the entire Trudeau paid media vilified her every single day. Every union ran against her. Every university ran against her. Doctors slandered her. They tried to destroy her. They couldn't. She had to stop her campaign to focus on the fires, while Notley ran a slam campaign across the province. This is true. The premier stopped her campaign. She stopped all of the UCP campaigns so that they could all deal with the fires, and Notley kept campaigning during that time. Very opportunistic. Conservatives rallied. Rural Alberta, they tried to say she broke the law. They tried to make her look like a villain. It didn't work. Conservatives rallied. Rural Alberta rallied. People were vigilantly debunking the media lies. We spread the truth as much as possible. The establishment hates her. They hate us. And against all odds, she won. The story here isn't the NDP. The NDP had the election to lose, and they did. The miracle story here is the person who refused to bow to the mob, to fall in line with Trudeau and the media, to become part of the establishment. The story here is Danielle Smith. Alberta is back. We have 4 years to turn this place into the most prosperous place on the planet, and at the same time correct as much corruption and deception as possible. Alberta needs to set the tone for Canada and rally all provinces to stand up for themselves. We are all Albertans. History is being made. Let's effing go. And I think that's true. I think in those ridings that were very close in Calgary, and some of them that flipped orange, we've got 4 years as conservatives, as part of the conservative movement. I say we, I don't mean we as in I'm a UCPer. But I think people who are within the conservative movement, who care about small government, fiscal responsibility, personal liberty, and being left alone, and innovating, doing things differently, looking at the things that are failing and saying, oh, why are we still doing healthcare that way? Why are we still doing education that way? Why are we still building capital projects this enormously expensive way? I think it is incumbent on the conservative movement to say, we're going to try something different. It's not going to fail, and the apocalypse is not going to come. So there are 4 years to show those Notley voters in Calgary that the doomsday end of time scenario that the NDP is talking about in healthcare and education, it isn't coming, it won't come, and everything's going to be fine, and it might even be a little bit better. And I think that's sort of what Ron DeSantis did in Florida. He was elected really by like a statistical rounding error his first time out, and then it was a slam dunk overwhelming majority. And I think Danielle Smith, if she sticks to her guns and doesn't change who she is, she has the opportunity to change hearts and minds in battleground Calgary.
Yeah, I think that's a great analysis of what's happening in Alberta and other areas all across other jurisdictions across Canada and across the world, as you see the failure of the woke mob and what is traditionally being or currently being said to be, the left-wing, radically progressive ideology. I just wonder if their cognitive dissonance is not too ingrained and doesn't run so deep that they won't ever be able to see the reality of a conservative-led government and how much more prosperous and successful it can lead individual lives. It's hard to remember on a federal level how much better off we were as Canadians on that individual level 8 years ago before Trudeau's reign of terror. And I hope that the next 4 years under Smith is just another nail in the coffin, that these progressive policies harm us fiscally, economically, and divide Canadians in a way that we have really never seen before, at least not in my lifetime and the lifetime of generations prior, like my father, who notes how toxic the political landscape is right now in Canada, the political landscape, but also the social landscape. And I think it's a great day for Alberta. It's looking better and better to seek refuge to. So we'll see, as politicians become appointed and elected, how much they flip-flop thereafter. But I have faith that Smith will not be that way.
And that's one thing I want to note is that, and I'm hosting for Ezra tonight on his show, and it's one of the things I talk about. Just because Danielle Smith is the premier, that doesn't mean our work is done here at Rebel News. It doesn't mean that we can stop focusing on Alberta and then turn our ire at Justin Trudeau. We can do both. I can walk and chew gum at the same time. And it is our job to make sure that Danielle Smith stays true to her word, doesn't lie to Albertans, and she keeps her promises to us. Or she's going to get the Jason Kenney treatment. Where is he, by the way? You know, he came in strong. We were all very hopeful for what he offered. We had known his track record as Stephen Harper's right-hand man, and we thought this is the man for the job. He believes in religious freedom. He believes in personal accountability. He believes in small government. But when the rubber met the road and when he was really tested, he talked a good talk, but he didn't walk the walk. And so it's our job at Rebel News to make sure that Danielle Smith doesn't falter. All the forces of the universe are acting on her right now to pull her left. The CBC, the mainstream media, the culture, academia, medicine, everything. Everything is working to pull her to the left, at least to the center. We have to be something on the right, pulling her back the other way and reminding her how she got to where she got and what happened to the last guy.
And the proof is in the pudding, how fruitful that sort of endeavor will be. So again, Alberta is looking like the freedom place to be these days. And as the rest of us kind of divulge into this progressive swamp dumpster fire, it looks like a good place to be. So,
well, just on that, at that point, you don't have to move here to reap the rewards of Alberta being strong and free, because Danielle Smith is really sticking her neck out as the leader on such issues as provincial autonomy, fighting back against the carbon tax, fighting back against the gun grab. She'll stand up and say, okay, Justin Trudeau, we'll see you in court. And then Saskatchewan says, you know what, us too. And then the Yukon goes, you know what, that's a great idea. And then Manitoba's like, you know what, I'm joining the gang. So she has to be sort of the one that stands up first, takes the slings and arrows, and sort of leads the way for these other provinces to join the march against Justin Trudeau. So I think Danielle Smith is really, truly working to make Canada a more free place from Alberta. I mean, we were talking to Tracy Wilson from the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights last night. Alberta was an intervener in their case against the federal government's gun grab. We stepped in and said, you know what, we want to help you guys. We believe in gun rights. We kicked out the CFO, the Trudeau CFO, appointed our own. And we're trying things that we think other provinces could try too. And they're working to push back against the feds.
Can you believe how refreshing it is to see a leader who is actually leading? Like, I am so done with following the status quo, and they're doing it, so why don't we too? And we're going to tiptoe and tiptoe around these progressive ideologies and hope for the best, but behind the scenes expect the worst. And so it's so refreshing to see someone like Smith really take the charge and lead the way on things like this. And we're seeing that shift happening again across jurisdictions, all across Canada. The public is starting to push back. The culture seems to be shifting a little bit, seeing that the direction that we were taking over the last few years by following that status quo and just falling in line, doing what everyone else is doing because we're going to follow the top-down direction from one person instead of use our minds and think critically ourselves. It's really refreshing to start to see that shift happening in people. And I think it naturally will empower people to use their critical thinking skills and to think outside of the box and say, hey, you know what? Some of this stuff isn't working anymore. And it's nice to see someone veer off that path a little bit to advocate for the rights of the individual, but also do what's in the best interest of the people that they represent. So again, that's really refreshing to see.
And the data is already starting to roll in. One of the big things on this is Danielle Smith, who is continuing Jason Kenney's focus on drug treatment for addictions and the opioid crisis, as opposed to government-funded enabling. They call it harm reduction, but it is government-funded drugs at a government-funded shooting gallery, as they call them, where they are handed to you by a government-paid employee. And we don't use the term harm reduction here in Alberta. We use the term palliative care, because there is only one way out of drug addiction. That's treatment to get clean or death. Now, the government can enable one or the other. In Alberta, we've chosen to enable recovery and life. And that is in stark contrast to what's happening in BC. It's in stark contrast to what's happening at the federal level. Just last night in the House of Commons, they voted to reaffirm the legalization of hard drugs in British Columbia. And it's playing out right now. A tale of two provinces, a tale of two approaches, and a tale of two death tallies for overdoses. And Alberta is seeing a sharp decline in our overdose deaths because we've opened up, I think it's 10,000 drug treatment beds across the province. We've eliminated the fees for people to access them, and we've stopped giving out taxpayer-funded poisons to people. And in BC, they've completely enabled it. So we're happy, I think, as Alberta to be the testing ground, the control group for how you might do things differently and save lives.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think, just a little bit off topic, but I think Pierre Poilievre had a tweet about that just yesterday. Mm-hmm. It was a National Post article. Let me just see if I can, and there was some interesting stats there because British Columbia has been at this for, 30 years? And
30 years.
It's not gotten any better. In fact, it's just gotten worse, as evidenced by this National Post article. This particular journalist did a massive deep dive.
Mike Schellenberger, I think, did it. It was Mike Schellenberger, and he looked at some data from San Francisco. I think he wrote the book, literally the book on the drug approach in San Francisco. Yeah. And we've got, a generation and a half of enabling people in the downtown east side. And this neighborhood in one of the wealthiest, nicest cities in the entire world is an absolute hellhole of human misery. And they want to do that to the rest of us. And Alberta has said, no thanks.
Yeah, I can't find the, I thought I found the tweet, but that wasn't the right one. Sorry. Yes, it's the one that Efron shared there. If we can just pull up that highlighted stat quickly.
Yeah, I see it.
In January 2023, the latest month for which data is available in Alberta, overdose deaths dropped from 111 from 172 in the same period last year. In April this year, British Columbia counted 206 overdose deaths, a 17% increase since the same time last year. Yeah. The proof is in the pudding.
Yeah, we saw a 1/3 decline, if my numbers are right there. We saw a 1/3 decline. That's 61 lives saved, not just 61 lives saved, 61 families not devastated by this disease. Mm-hmm. These are children, moms and dads. Drug addiction is a black hole that sucks everything around it inside of it. Even if you're not anywhere near the drugs, you somehow get sucked into the black hole of financial decay and societal mess. But these are 61 lives that were saved by Alberta's different approach to drug treatment, a 1/3 decline, and yet in BC, where they enable people right into the grave, they saw a 17% increase.
It's time to rethink the harm reduction. Perhaps it's not actually reducing any harm.
Palliative care, they call it here in Alberta, because it is it. You are helping people right into their grave. So we call it palliative care.
We had some tweets that we were going to read out, the various leaders congratulating Smith.
Yeah, please.
I don't know, Sheila, if you want to just pick maybe one or two, and then we'll head over to an ad break and kind of get through the Smith reign.
Let's go to Jagmeet Singh, because I think he was pretty scared that Rachel Notley was going to resign last night. Because if she resigned here, I think I still think there is probably happening right now a pretty strong lobbying effort for her to take over the leadership of the federal party, which would mean you no longer have a job, Jagmeet Singh. So I think he was probably holding his breath last night, much like I was, but for a little bit different reason. So let's show his. He said, "It wasn't the result we hoped for, but I'm grateful for all the hard work from Rachel Notley and Alberta's NDP team. It doesn't end here, Alberta. The fight continues to protect healthcare, to make sure our schools are welcoming to all kids, and to save people's pensions." You know that we have the most diverse education system in the entire country?
Yes, and I'm jealous of Alberta's education system. School choice.
School choice is everywhere. Instead of in other provinces where private school is just for people with a lot of money, the funding model follows the kids here. So if you want to take your kid to a charter school, they're fully funded. If you want to go to a private school, and the private schools and charter schools save the government money because they're only funded at 70%. So, but they really think that we should all just be putting our kids in cookie cutter government run schools where there's absolutely no choice and they expect all kids to learn the same and have the exact same interests. That's what they want for us.
The
Just
robot
like healthcare,
party.
equal suffering in the longest lineup.
Yeah, I think in Ontario it's, well, in 2020 anyway, so it's probably gone up with inflation since then, but it was approximately $10,000 per student per year that goes to the school boards for their enrollment. And if the parents decided to not go with the public school system, then that money just dies. It doesn't go into the school board. It gets reallocated elsewhere, unbeknownst to the taxpayer. Whereas in Alberta, that money, and I don't know what it is per student per year, but that funding would follow the student to the school of choice of the parents. And I agree 100% with that model, especially as we see here in Ontario, school boards go rogue, that they're instituting these radical SOGI, sexual orientation, gender identity, progressive ideologies. They're throwing it on the shoulders of students as young as, well, they start them in kindergarten, really. And more parents are saying, why are my taxpayer dollars funding this? They don't get any answers from their school boards. And I mean, maybe this is a conversation to lead into our next topic. So I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole before we get through a couple of these congratulatory, hypocritical tweets.
And just to button up the education issue here in Alberta, the people who enroll their kids in private school, by median income, they're actually lower income than the average Albertan. They're actually not wealthy families. They don't even earn as high as the average Alberta income. They're down here, but they're just accessing this because this is the thing that's really important to them. And people like Jagmeet Singh and Rachel Notley would take that opportunity away from these kids, from families who are just trying to get a leg up in the world.
I think the other funny tweet that we have, obviously we know Pierre Poilievre endorsed and congratulated Premier Smith, but our fearless leader, Justin Trudeau of the Liberals. He says, congratulations, Danielle Smith. Let's keep working together.
What?
Working together to deliver results for Albertans. Let's create more good jobs, grow our economy, and continue to position Alberta as a leader in clean energy.
I love how he said, let's keep working together, because her acceptance speech was like a big fat punch in the nose to Justin Trudeau. Like, the first thing she said was, we're coming to the table. You darn well better join us or you're in for a world of hurt.
I think we have a clip.
Yeah, we should show a clip. This Justin Trudeau says we're working together. This is what Danielle Smith has to say.
And finally, my fellow Albertans, we need to come together, no matter how we have voted, to stand shoulder to shoulder against soon-to-be announced Ottawa policies that would significantly harm our provincial economy. Now, we have been made aware that in the coming weeks, Justin Trudeau is planning on bringing forward new restrictions on electricity generation from natural gas that will not only massively increase your power bills, but will also endanger the integrity and reliability of our entire power grid, which we rely on during our cold and dark Alberta winters. In addition, the Prime Minister is already ready to introduce a de facto production cap on our oil and gas sector that, if implemented, will result in tens of thousands of jobs lost, tens of billions in lost investment, damage our province's fiscal position, and bring economic hardship to Albertans. Now, I've made myself clear on this matter to the Prime Minister in person and in public, but I feel we need to do it again.
Justin Trudeau is about to experience her differently, I think.
Well, and if you click the tiny URL in his tweet, it actually expands a little bit on his comments. And so he says in here that he wants to create good jobs for the middle class. I'm pretty sure that under Justin Trudeau, we have seen complete decimation. Oh, I just dropped my pen. Of the middle class, improving healthcare, continuing to position Alberta as a leader, he said that, making life more affordable. It's pretty tough with record inflation thanks to his government's policies and the global lockdowns. We will also continue to build on the progress we have made to deliver affordable childcare to families in Alberta and move forward on the path of reconciliation. It just has to throw that in there.
Of course. He just, he took a congratulations to Alberta and turned it into a stump speech for himself. Yeah. Just say like, hey, thanks, we look forward to working with you. Albertans have spoken. That probably would have been the best thing for him to do. But no, he has to like smear around all of his progressive baloney all over a big day for Albertans.
All right, let's throw to a quick ad break here, and then we'll come back and discuss in further depth about some of these rogue woke school boards.
I am doing something today that I have never tried before. Listen up. I'm looking for collaborators in a new and exciting initiative. As you most likely know, YouTube a long time ago demonetized Rebel News, and we are 100% viewer funded. Now, while our supporters are fantastic at helping us cover legal campaigns and special reporting missions, unfortunately, the reality is our day-to-day operational expenses often exceed our income stream. Which is crazy if you think about it, because my videos across all platforms attract hundreds of thousands of views and sometimes even millions. So I want to share that reach with the right partners. If you have a product or business and want to enter a win-win relationship with me, please go to rebelnews.com/ads and fill in the form to let me know. I won't be accepting anyone. I need to believe in your business or product so I can sell it proudly for you. And for successful applicants, I will guarantee a minimum view count, meaning even if your ad is published on the less popular reports, we'll keep promoting your business or product until it gets the agreed minimum eyeball. So again, if you have a cool company or product that either wants to take advantage of my reach or want to support my work through advertising in a way that you can write it off as a tax deduction, or both, head over to rebelnews.com/ads and hopefully we can join forces soon.
All right, so this next story...
Abby makes me want to advertise with the company. I'm like, wait, I work here.
Yeah, Abby has a way with words that way.
Yeah, he does.
So this next story comes from Harrison Faulkner at True North, and it's good news at the York Catholic District School Board, that's just north of Toronto, where the school board voted down in a 6-4, I believe it was, motion not to fly the Pride flag this June for Pride Month. They will just continue flying the Canadian flag and stick to the Catholic doctrine. So I think there's a little clip here to share of that motion.
All right, so here we go. All those in favor of raising the flag?
Shame on you. People that don't put their hands up. Shame on your patriots.
Okay. All those opposed?
Let's go! Yes! The cross is a symbol for all people. Always remember that. For all people. The cross represents all people, including gay and trans people. Everyone.
That's right. Here comes security to shut the guy up.
Better kick him out for those outrageous comments.
Yeah, take away that nice young Catholic for making a really good point.
Well, there's some other videos here too that are just a few down in the comments where these I don't even know if they're parents. That's the thing. It seems like the people that are coming that are spewing the LGBTQSLIA plus, like I don't even know all the words or the alphabet soup that it is anymore. But I don't think that they're parents. Many of them are just advocates that are misinformed about what is truly going on with parents sharing grievances around some of these progressive ideological grievances, and they're really enraged without being able to articulate their position in a calm, reasonable fashion. And so there's a couple more clips here. I don't know if we can pull them up, shared in the comments by Miles. I won't even attempt to butcher his
Miles
last name.
From Campaign Life Coalition.
Yes.
He's great. He's also banned from school board meetings along with David Menzies. He's nice, young, faithful Catholic young man. And that young man who was taken away by security made an excellent point, and he reiterated the words of Archbishop Tom Collins of the Toronto Archdiocese, who said, "The cross is the symbol which represents all. Jesus died for all of us. On that cross, it represents all of us." That's the inclusive symbol of the Catholic schools. And the 4 that voted for it, those parents are right to yell shame at them. I counted 3 crucifixes in that room. And they put their hand up to vote against Catholic doctrine in front of 3 separate crucifixes. Somebody needs to go to confession. And what is really weird to me about all of this is the activists focus exclusively on the Catholic schools and the Catholic schools mostly. There are public options. If you think, okay, I'm going to send my kid to this Catholic school, but the Catholic values, which should come as a shock to nobody, we like to write our rules down. The Catechism is a really big, thick book, and if you've got any questions about anything to do with life and rules, you just flip open the Catechism of the Catholic Church and it's there. There are not a lot of gray areas in the Catholic Church, probably none. So if you find that the Catholic teaching is incompatible with your worldview, guess what? Go to a public school. You don't have to insist. This 2,000-year-old institution that has not changed over time should bend to your will. Imagine the narcissism of thinking that, but that's what these activists think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost as though they're led to believe that there are no other options. And the public schools will willy-nilly just fly, it seems like, any flag these days. And this is really a showcasing of favoritism when you fly these specific flags. There's the Canadian flag, and the Catholic schools have repeatedly said, we are not going to fly any specialty flags. That includes the pride flag. It has nothing to do with being homophobic or anti-tolerance or inclusivity. It's just simply the fact that we are not flying any specialty flags. There's no favoritism here. And as you mentioned, Sheila, if they have a grievance with that, go to a public system. You know full well that they're going to roll it up that flagpole without hesitation every June. So I don't see what the big deal is here.
I think it is narcissism. As I said it, I just realized it probably has a lot of, I think that's one of the smartest things I've ever said. Because these are people who think that biology should bend to their feelings. Mm-hmm. Science should bend to their feelings. Religious institutions should bend to their feelings, that other people should bend to their feelings by being forced to affirm them. They've taken over not just Pride Week, but now we have Pride Month and now we have Pride Season. So they've taken a season for themselves. They think that other people should be forced to utter the words that they've chosen for us to use. That's absolute narcissism, that you must think that you're the center of the universe. And I think that's why they do attack religious institutions is because if you're a member of a religious institution, for example, the Catholic Church, I can speak to this, we don't think that we're the center of the universe. We think that there's a higher power who has created us in his own image, which makes us special, and we probably shouldn't tinker with it. We don't have to make up real weird words to give ourselves value and dye our hair blue and do weird things. We don't have to do that.
Well, if what you say is true, then let's show this clip of this narcissist who is just extremely distraught over the fact that the Catholic school won't fly this sexual flag. Oh, we're just pulling it up here. It's the first clip in the comment by Miles. Oh, it's not playing properly from the studio. But anyway, if you have Twitter, you can head over to that thread and have a look for yourself, because I don't even think it's a father. I think it's just a random person. I'm hoping I'm not assuming his gender. It looks like a man. Is just up in arms about we have the clip now.
I have a friend who describes these people as not being parents. They don't have children. They have cats and abortions. That's all they have. That's why they go after your kids.
That just gave me chills. Let's show this clip.
It's the bare minimum that you can do. You can't even buy a piece of cloth. How can students feel safe? How you can get me out.
Okay, but yeah, it's a piece of cloth. It's a piece of cloth. Nobody cares. But for Catholics, you're making them violate their conscience. Maybe you don't think you have a mortal soul, screaming weirdo, but Catholics do, and we try not to do things which jeopardizes our mortal soul. We don't want to die not in a state of grace so that we end up someplace terrible. So don't make us, like, when you say these things to a Catholic, basically you're saying, fly my flag to make me happy and damn yourself to eternity. Or you could just be Catholic. That's the narcissism of these people. They want a Catholic to risk their soul to make them feel good and affirmed.
Yeah, and affirmed. That's the key here, is that apparently you can't just go on living your life if you don't have rainbow-colored flags strewn about throughout society.
Right.
Because we have to affirm your mental grievance, your mental position. Next up, we have this tweet from Olivia Chow, who's said to be one of the top contenders for the Toronto mayoral election.
I think she's going to win.
Let's not go there. That's if you believe the polls. We were going to touch on that a bit earlier, but we didn't end up. And the tweet earlier was basically showing how incorrect the pollsters truly were, and the one individual, Janet Brown, had a really high success with her predictions. But anyway, here's this tweet from Olivia Chow, who's, as I mentioned, one of the top contenders who Sheila thinks will win the Toronto mayoral election. She says, does she identify as a woman? I don't even know. Her name's Olivia. Flying the pride flag says it's 2SLGBTQ plus. I think there's an I and an A in there now. But anyway.
Yeah, and sometimes they move around where the 2 is. And so I don't know. Okay, the 2SLGBTQ plus students, you are welcome here, because I guess you wouldn't be otherwise welcome if we didn't fly this piece of cloth. Everyone should feel safe at public schools. Has she seen the report where violence is up like 80% in Ontario elementary schools? YCDSB, that's the York Region Catholic District School Board, has made a decision to leave room for homophobia and transphobia because they don't want to fly this favoritism flag. It's shameful and doesn't represent the majority of people. I think that they just showcased democracy in action there when they voted down flying this piece of cloth, as that one hysterical, potentially not a parent person clearly exclaimed. Yeah, I don't know. Like, what am I to believe here? That kids, and I hate to even use the phrase because I think there's no such thing as a kid who's like a member of a sexual minority. These are kids, right? Like, we should not think of them as sexual creatures. But so gay kids, they would be scared to go into a building? Is that what they want me to believe? That if they don't see the pride flag, they're not allowed to go in? They think that there's just a bunch of
transphobic
rednecks in there waiting to beat them up? Is that what Olivia Chow wants us to believe and wants gay kids to believe? Like, it's almost like she's infecting them with fear. It's almost like what they do with climate change, where it's like, oh my goodness, your parents are killing the earth. You're never going to make it past the age of 22. How dare they? And then you have a bunch of little activists telling you what car you should drive them to soccer in for some reason. It's the same thing where we're infecting kids who might be gay, maybe not, their body dysmorphia, whatever, we're infecting them with this fear that if somebody doesn't affirm your feelings with a flag, that they must hate you, when chances are they probably don't care that you exist.
Exactly. There's something I want to point out to Julia Malott. She's a trans woman who lives in this area. So I can't remember exactly where, but southeastern Ontario, I believe. And I just put a link to her Twitter where she says, we need to talk about pride flags. And it's a 6-minute clip, so we won't go into the clip. But the tweet itself says, if you accuse organizations of the phobias for not flying a pride flag, you are not adopting a position where we are free to fly flags. You've created a position of coercion, where those who do not bow to your demand are deemed guilty of holding beliefs or positions that they've never spoken or expressed. And I really like the way that she kind of critiques and goes into this stuff, being someone in that community herself. And so this is a squashing, right? That side always says, oh, well, you're fascist because you won't fly the flag, or you won't wear the mask, or you don't agree with the lockdowns.
You're the one making me do things.
And you're kowtowing to the government, and you're taking the government's position and trying to silence and kibosh everyone else. I think that is quite literally the textbook definition of fascism. So if I would urge anyone, if you're tuning in, to check out Julia Malott on Twitter. There's a lot of really good takes there, I think, that are quite neutral, but also at the same time not. And as someone who, I guess to use their language, sees it through the lens of a trans person within that community, I think she has a lot of really valuable positions to bring to the table. And we also have this other clip here from Tucker, who, like me, is wondering all of the definitions of the alphabet soup, including who is the plus. I thought that, when it was just LGBT, I thought the trans and the bi were kind of like the plus. I thought they encapsulated and encompassed almost everyone through those 4 letters. But now it's just this long alphabet smorgasbord of letters, numbers, and symbols. So here, let's play this little 40-second clip of Tucker.
Really, you're putting your pronouns in your email? You're ridiculous. But no one else thinks it's ridiculous. Oh no, it's your pronouns in the email. What does that even mean? What does it even mean? You're saying things you can't define. LBGTQIA+? Who's the plus? The plus is invited on my show anytime. Find a plus and I'll interview him. What's it like to be a plus? Am I a plus? I'm serious. I feel like I'm an addition. Does that make me a plus? No one even knows what it is. And the whole society, LGBTQIA+. All right, what's the plus? Oh, shut up, racist. Okay.
He's not wrong. I don't know what the plus is either. And I know the 2S is two-spirited, so I'm supposed to adopt Indigenous spirituality while shoving mine in the garbage.
Right? And as soon as you uphold your spirituality or your religion, then you're the bigot, you're the transphobe, you're the homophobe. But we must all kowtow to the Aboriginal sentiments of there being this idea of 2 spirits at once in one body.
Which I'm not sure is something that is a uniform position held by all Indigenous people, many of whom are Catholic. By the way, the left likes to forget that many Indigenous people are Catholic. Let's go to this one thing in Saskatoon, because it's really making my friend Lise very mad. Very, very mad. She sends me a lot of Snapchat messages every single day about how mad she is about this. So there's a lot going on in this story. Advocates criticize Saskatoon Catholic Schools' directive to keep kids, this is the craziest line, keep kids away from Rainbow Tent at the Children's Festival. So this is at the Nutrien Children's Festival. Remember that name, Nutrien. If you're not a farmer, you might not know what it is. So the Greater Saskatoon Catholic Schools are guilty of the crime of being Catholic. because Tom Hickey directed principals to keep students away from the rainbow tent at this year's Nutrien Children's Festival of Saskatchewan. Advocates say the directive sends a regressive message. The rainbow tent will offer programming from drag queen story time to inclusive dress-up performances filled with color and fun. Oh, that feels like grooming, doesn't it? Hickey wrote to principals that engagement and participation by our students in that particular offering would not be supported because of the description on the festival website. Also because this Catholic school district is Catholic, apparently. Please be assured that GSCS schools are still welcome to attend the Children's Festival, Hickey wrote. However, we ask that you speak with teachers who may be taking students and inform them the rainbow tent should not be part of their visit. Okay, the Nutrien Children's Festival is for kids ages 6 to 12. Why is there a pride tent at the Children's Festival that is directed at kids between 6 and 12? That feels groomy to me. And the activists now are ready to raise hell against the Catholic school for saying, hey, we don't think that Catholic parents are going to be cool with activist teachers taking first graders to a drag queen story hour at the Children's Festival. Because as a parent, if I heard, oh, they're going to the Children's Festival on Friday as an end of the year activity, I'd be like, okay, cool. Except it has a pride tent there. And thank goodness this principal or this school, the superintendent, at least he said he dug down on what was happening there, and he's like, okay, we're cool to attend everything, all the kid-friendly stuff, except this one anti-Catholic thing that's going to make parents really mad. This guy sounds like a great guy. How do I recruit him to come work at my school system? But the non-parent activists, who, as I say, have cats and abortions, not children, are very, very mad at him, and now they want to boycott him. And the reason I said pay attention to Nutrien is a fertilizer company. Who knew my fertilizer company was so darn woke? You know who is the sponsor of the YWCA Women of Distinction Awards that saw a biological male be the keynote speaker and a biological male be one of the nominees? Well, wouldn't you know it, it was Nutrien. And I think this has a lot to do with their ESG goals, those environmental sustainable governance goals that these fertilizer and fossil fuel companies self-flagellate themselves over to get social license. I think this is part of that because I can't imagine that this is something that Regina parents, Saskatchewan parents actually care about, Saskatoon parents. I think that they would probably be in agreement with this school superintendent saying, let's keep the kids out of there. I don't think it's a great idea. I don't think people care so much about the social activism of their fertilizer company, but Nutrien is just spraying their BS all over the place with all these far left-wing things. And I think we really have to start paying attention to it now.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned Nutrien because I took the liberty of looking up their 2023 Environmental, Social, and Governance Report, which happens to mention gender approximately 10 times. I mean, it's all about board diversity, gender diversity, inclusion, tolerance. The funny thing is, I mean, they aim to have a certain percentage. I think it's just over 30% of board members, for instance, have to be women. But I can't remember which page it was on, but they were showing kind of their progress report year over year. And in 2020, they were doing all right. And now 2021, 2022, those numbers have slowly dwindled, I guess, how diverse and inclusive they are. So this is just a nail in the coffin that they have to continue virtue signaling for those goals.
Well, and Justin Trudeau is going to cap their industry whether they pay the groomers or not. You know what I mean? Like, you're still going to get caught in those nitrogen targets, Nutrien. So just maybe worry about the bottom line and not all this other garbage like climate change and gender nonsense and sexual parody on your board of directors. Nobody cares. You know what I care about? How much the fertilizer costs in the tank. That's what I care about. I don't care that you beat yourself up over social license all day long because I feel like social license is very expensive. And I know that companies don't eat that cost. They pass it along to me as the consumer of the fertilizer that I need for my crop. So I am paying for Nutrien to sponsor the groomers, and I don't like it one bit.
All right, we are nearing the end of our stream, and we want to get to one quick ad break and another segment very quickly on censorship. So let's throw to a quick ad, and then we'll come back to chat about censorship before we leave you for the day.
Living with spike protein in a post-pandemic world is something we all have to grapple with, whether you've had the virus, you've been vaccinated yourself, or if you're around those who were. The wellness company's Spike Support Formula is a daily supplement that can help you feel your best and then stay that way. Go to twccanada.health to get back to that pre-pandemic feeling with Spike Support. Use coupon code REBEL to save 10% off these doctor-formulated products, which are rooted in science, and for a limited time, your first month's membership is only 99 cents. That's twccanada.health, coupon code REBEL at checkout. It's time to put your wellness back in the driver's seat.
I'm excited about that company. I have an interview later this week with someone from the wellness company to chat about their initiative, what they're doing primarily in Canada, but they have some serious growth plans, and they're kind of revolutionizing the health sector and the health market currently. So I'm pretty excited to see where that leads.
Well, and I'm not one to promote a product I don't believe in, but I did some digging around on the science that they're using and the studies that support the ingredients of their product. And I'm like, well, darn it, these are peer-reviewed studies. And we really should be hearing about these peer-reviewed studies, but these peer-reviewed studies indicate that some of the things they gave us into our bodies might not be all that good for us. And so we can't hear about those sorts of things or how to rectify that issue. So anyways, the wellness company, truly backed in science. I did some digging around. It really is.
Mm-hmm. All right, moving along, we have more censorship plans, surprise, surprise, coming from the Justin Trudeau Liberals. So this particular article comes from Blacklocks. It is titled, Fed Censor Bill by Year's End. Cabinet will attempt to reintroduce an internet censorship bill by the year's end. Heritage Minister Pablo Rodriguez yesterday told the Commons Heritage Committee he would have more to announce shortly. We have worked a good deal on this issue, and we will have more to announce shortly, he testified. An earlier bill, Bill C-36, an act to amend the criminal code, there it is, we all suspected it.
Hate speech. Yep.
Was introduced June 23rd, 2021, but lapsed in the last parliament, i.e. when Justin Trudeau prorogued parliament and called a snap election in the middle of, I don't know, what was it, the sixth wave of COVID-19, where he campaigned on the wedge issue of people's vaccination status. Yeah, there it is. Hate speech is forbidden under 1970 amendments to the criminal code. Bill C-36 went further in proposing to ban as hateful any legal content
legal.
likely
so this
to
is,
foment detestation or vilification under threat of $70,000 fines.
Yeah, this is the criminalization of being critical of your politicians is really what this is about. This is not to protect any marginalized group, although I don't think marginalized groups should be protected from criticism, by the way. But this is about our politicians, because who are you sending the mean tweets to? Well, mainstream media probably, but also the politicians. And that's what this seeks to criminalize. They point out that this is legal content. So not things that are threats to commit violence or threats of genocide or anything like that. It's not that. It is legal content. So criticisms, and these criticisms are likely to foment detestation. So dislike, that's what detestation means. If your tweet might cause others to dislike Justin Trudeau as much as I do, that could have you end up being slapped with $70,000 in fines.
And we all called it.
I know.
We all called that this was coming, that this would just be reintroduced with the new sitting. And now that Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh have this unofficial coalition between the two of them, bills like this are likely to be rammed through, as we've seen already with Bill C-11, for instance. And they're so ambiguously worded. That's kind of the thing that I continue to recognize with liberal-minded and liberal imposed legislation, is that it is so ambiguously worded that is open to interpretation, and we never really know, like there's not a clear in stone way that these pieces of legislation can be implemented. And that's what makes it really concerning, because it can be willy-nilly imposed or maybe not, and who is actually liable for a fee of this magnitude or a fine of this magnitude. It's really up to the debate of the administrating this legislation, and that gets into all the nitty-gritty of how we've disregarded the legal checks and balances and gave the authoritative power to the legislative state. Bruce Pardy, lawyer and professor, talks in depth about this and how dangerous it is for people who actually want to follow law and order, because the law and order is no longer being clearly defined. It's just being willy-nilly put out there, and it's open to the interpretation of the people meant to be enforcing it.
Well, and I think it has also another effect. So not only are the $70,000 fines going to hammer critics, and do you get that per tweet? Do you get that per day? Poor criticism? Like, what if I put 2 mean things about Justin Trudeau and a third one about Rosie Barton, all in the same tweet because Elon Musk gave me more characters? Am I on the hook now for $210,000? How does that work? Or here's the real thing that's going to happen. Maybe I just won't tweet that mean thing at all. And now I've self-censored myself. I've cut out my own tongue instead of forcing the government to do it on my behalf. And I think that is the really sinister thing, is when, again, like what the trans activists want to do to the Catholics, when you force somebody else to violate their own conscience, what a narcissistic thing to do, and what a horrible power to wield over another person. I think that's what's more likely to happen. We won't see a ton of these $70,000 fines. We'll just see a more boring vanilla world where you can't criticize the powers that be.
The rest of this article is also pretty good. There's a quote here from Rodriguez, who says, "Online hate, as you know, doesn't stay online. It makes its way into the street. It makes its way into real behavior. We have seen that here. We have seen that in Washington." I'm guessing that he is referring to the Capitol riots that happened in January of, what year was that? 2021? 2020. My years over the COVID narrative have just kind of meshed into.
Or no, maybe it is 2021. I don't know. The insurrection.
It was 2021.
Anyway.
Yeah.
2021. Yeah. So after it was, yes.
Online hate is real hate. That's real behavior. We are coming up with something very shortly. Like this reads like a thinly veiled threat.
Well, and then the Trudeau quote at the bottom: "The government believes in free speech, but." So not, actually you don't then. If you say but, then anything that came before that is just like in the garbage can. But with social media, there is a new way to foment anger and hate that is different from anything we've seen before. Difficult to counter, and it's destabilizing our democracy. Well, you know what democracy needs? More censorship, right, Justin?
Yeah, it's the reversal of the natural order. So Justin Trudeau says one thing and then he does another, or vice versa. It's politicians speaking out of both sides of their mouths. Classic example right there with Trudeau. All right. We had one last video from Mark Gerritsen. I don't know, Sheila, do we want to touch on that before we wrap things up?
Let's just show it real quick. Real quick, and then I've got to jump off because I've got to host for Ezra.
Yes.
But we must show Mark because, just when I think, Seamus O'Regan is one of the dumbest people in Parliament, or maybe it's Omar Al-Jabra, Mark Gerritsen just pokes his head up and he's like a whack-a-mole. If he's not saying stupid things on Twitter, then he's saying stupid things in the House of Commons, and he's just a highly unintelligent person. And I can't believe the Liberals let him talk. But maybe his idiocy distracts from Justin Trudeau's stupidity. So there might be a game plan here. I just don't see it. But let's listen to him on the issue of foreign interference. I think the Chinese had something to do with that shirt, tie, jacket combo too. That's really bad. Anyway, let's go.
The Leader of the Opposition has said on a number of occasions that he doesn't want to receive and learn about the classified information because he doesn't want to be silenced. Yet he has members of his caucus, the member from Bruce Grey Owen Sound, for example, that has those security clearances, has received those briefings through NSICOP, and has participated in multiple debates in this House on foreign interference. Is it true that the Leader of the Opposition is really concerned about being silenced, or is it more so that he would rather be willfully ignorant?
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Madam Speaker, the former. We know that if the Prime Minister had his way, he'd bring me into a room, he'd drop a bunch of paper in front of me, much of which would already be public knowledge, and he'd mark it secret. And then, if I went out into the world and spoke about similar subject matter, then he would say I violated the rules of national security. I know exactly what he's up to, and that is why I will continue to do my job, which is Leader of the Opposition, to hold him accountable. I will not be silenced. This is Canada, and in Canada we have the freedom of expression.
Whoever made that clip put the tinfoil hat
on the wrong guy.
Yeah. I was going to say, imagine being someone who thinks that having robust, independent scrutiny of foreign election claims in your nation qualifies someone as a tinfoil hat-bearing conspiracy theorist.
Yeah. People who want more transparency, those are the tinfoil hat people. Listen to the wild way in which Pierre Poilievre believes intelligence briefings from a G7 country and a member of the Five Eyes Alliance takes place. This man believes he is qualified to be prime minister, and then his head exploded. But I think his head exploded a very long time ago. His brain just jumped out and fell on the floor. The man is not bright. If you go to his Twitter account, it's just Canadians rolling him up into a carpet and throwing him into a ditch day after day after day. And he continues to tweet, and I don't know why, but I don't even tweet him anymore because it feels cruel.
Well, and under Bill C-36, Sheila, perhaps you'd be fined $70,000 for doing so.
You know what, Tamara, you and I will start a prison band. It'll be fine. Okay, I think we're done. I think yes. I have to get off this call and get on my very next one because I'm hosting for Ezra today. I'm hosting for Ezra today. I think David Menzies is hosting for Ezra tomorrow, and then Ezra will be back in the new studio on Thursday. And if people would like to contribute to the new studio in which Tamara Ugolini is sitting right now, it's at buildthedream.ca. You can sponsor us. You can buy a brick. There's a whole different bunch of ways that you can get involved, and we appreciate all of it. We wouldn't be able to do any of this without any of you at home. We don't take a penny from Justin Trudeau or any form of government. We rely on the support of you. So thank you to everybody who's already pitched in, and there's still an opportunity to get involved. And by the way, the bricks, I love the bricks. Every time I'm in the office, I look for people I know, and it feels so good because you see this like wall of people who are cheering for you every day. I really like that. It fills up the moral tank. But I should wrap this up. I keep talking for some reason. Tamara, thanks so much for hosting with me today. I appreciate it very much. You were far more prepared than I was. Thanks to everybody in the studio in Toronto who puts the show together, and everybody who works behind the scenes. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. And I'm not sure who's hosting tomorrow. Could be me. Could be, I don't know who it's going to be. It's going to be somebody. The live stream's back, by the way, so don't be mad about it. We're all back. And as David Menzies always says, stay sane.
My mug? I know. It's pretty cool. So is this hoodie I got on, and you could have it on too if you check out our special website at rebelnewsstore.com. That's where you can see Freedom Focus hoodies that we have for you, beanies, cell phone cases, you name it, all while supporting our journalism where we fight to bring you the other side of the story, as opposed to, being forced by the Trudeau government to fund leftist media.